Carter and I have an 85% pheromone match, but he hates me. When someone who matched him 95% appeared, I left on my own accord. Later, I was framed, drunk, and thrown into the new president's room. I heard that this president is not interested in beautiful women and is ruthless. However, he hugged me tightly, his eyes were bloodshot. Where do you want to escape to? 01. When I saw the luxurious layout of the room, I realized that Aiden was not taking me back to the lounge, but to someone's luxurious suite. I was supposed to have dinner with my partners tonight, but unexpectedly the most famous president didn't come due to some urgent matters. The partners said that Carter had just returned from abroad and was not living at home. He bought a new house which was still being renovated, so he was temporarily living in a hotel. When I heard Carter, my heart stopped for a second. I wanted to ask what her full name was, but was afraid it would come across as awkward, so I wondered if I could find an opportunity to ask the question casually. However, before I could even ask, Aiden had already tricked me. He drugged my drink. Aiden is a male Omega like me, and he joined the company at the same time as me. I was promoted continuously, but he was never promoted. In addition, an alpha colleague he liked me, so Aiden hated me very much, and said bad things about me openly and secretly, and rolled his eyes at me. He sat next to me and accidentally broke my glass. He apologized unnaturally and brought me another glass of wine. However, halfway through the meal, I suddenly felt dizzy and my pheromones were about to become uncontrollable. I went to the bathroom to calm down, and I ran into Aiden again. He said that I looked very bad, so he took me to the lounge to rest. I thought he had changed his personality, but it turns out he was waiting for me here. This is not the lounge. I asked him with a little bit of rationality, whose room is this? Aiden threw me on the floor and smiled triumphantly, it's Carter's. I asked my friend who works here to copy this room card. Jackson, you're done. You'll be fired tomorrow. I took half a minute to react. I heard that this Carter is not interested in beautiful women and doesn't like Omegas. Someone once sent an Omega to his room for a project, but he threw the Omega, who was only wearing lace pajamas, into the hotel corridor and announced that he would never consider investing in their company again. Moreover, he seemed to particularly dislike Omegas whose pheromones smelled like freesia. It seems that a freesia-scented Omega deceived him, and Carter searched for him for several years but to no avail. Others asked, what happens after you find it? He just uttered 2 words coldly. Kill him. The smell of my pheromones happens to be freesia. If Carter came back and found me, he would throw me out and have my boss fire me. I would be ruined and it would be difficult for me to find a job in this industry again. Aiden's phone rang a few times. He picked it up, took a look and said with a smile, it seems that Carter will be back soon. Then I'll leave first. I wanted to hold him back, but I had no strength left. The drug Aiden gave me made my inhibitors ineffective, which directly induced a false fever in me. Pheromones gushed out and the rich scent of freesia filled the whole room. I still had a suppressor patch in my coat, and as I was struggling to get it out, I heard the sound of a card swiping. The moment the door was pushed open, there was only one thought in my mind. It's over. I slowly looked towards the door. The room was dark and I could only see a tall figure. He seemed to be choked by the smell of freesia that filled the room, and then he cursed, "Damn it, another one." I was not conscious, but I felt that the voice sounded familiar. The next second, he slammed the door shut with a deafening bang. Through the door, I heard his extremely cold voice, "Hurry up and find someone to get the person out of the room. After finding out who it is, deal with it the same way as before. By the way, change my room." Soon, there were voices of several people at the door. Someone opened the door, strode in, carried me on his shoulder and walked out. I looked at his attire and he should be a bodyguard. They must have all taken inhibitors, so they were not affected by my pheromones. After entering the corridor, the lights suddenly came on and subconsciously, I closed my eyes. I heard someone apologizing repeatedly, "I'm sorry, Carter. I'm so sorry, we must get to the bottom of this matter." This familiar accent sounds like Carter. I tried to regain some consciousness, opened my eyes and looked towards the source of the sound. The moment I saw his face clearly, I felt the blood rushing to my temples and it was so painful. I quickly lowered my head, trying to play dead, suppressing the pain, and waiting for the bodyguards to carry me away. However, Carter's voice suddenly sounded, unexpectedly, with some trembling. "Wait a moment." It seemed like someone walked in front of me, and after seeing my face clearly, he suddenly snatched me from the bodyguard's shoulders and held me in his arms. I exclaimed and looked at the person who was hugging me tightly. Carter's eyes were red. "Jackson, is that you?" 03. Everyone around was stunned, as if they didn't understand why Carter had coldly let the person out of the room in the previous second, and then carried him back into the room in the next second. Carter put me on the bed and put his big palm on my forehead. "Why is it so hot?" "Fever, period." His palms were very cool, and I couldn't help but tilt my face up so that there was more contact between my face and his hands, and then rub them gently. Carter seemed to be stunned, his whole body was stiff. His stiffness woke me up. "It's over." Carter hates me touching him. In the past, whenever I accidentally touched him, he would quickly dodge away, as if I were some dirty thing. I am really not sober now. I even dare to rub his hand. Afraid that Carter would throw me out, I quickly shrank back and left his grasp. Unexpectedly, I only took a step back and Carter pulled me forward again. Carter took the initiative to put his hand on my cheek. "Is it hot? Let me cool you down." My mind was in a mess. I wanted to avoid him rationally, but I subconsciously moved closer to him and nodded. A scent of sea salt mint filled the room, lowering my body temperature by a few degrees. It was Carter releasing pheromones. Carter and I have an 85% pheromone match, and his pheromones have a very soothing effect on me. Maybe it was the false fever that made me bold. After feeling the cool touch of Carter's silk shirt, I pressed my whole body against him again, like an octopus. I don't know if it was because I was too heavy. Carter took a deep breath, his voice a little hoarse. "Jackson." I uttered in a daze. "Don't move." Carter used his other hand to hold down my restless self and said in a low voice, "My inhibitor seems to be losing its effect soon." Before I could react, there was a knock on the door. Hearing the voice, Carter seemed relieved, yet reluctant to leave, and stood up to go to the door. As soon as this human-shaped air conditioner left, I subconsciously grabbed him. "Be good." Carter touched my face. "I'll be right back." Carter actually spoke to me so gently and took the initiative to help me cool down. It must be because the fever was too severe that he was having hallucinations. Carter opened the door, grabbed his things, and returned to the bed. He had several tubes of suppressants in his hands. "It will hurt a little." As if forewarning, he opened a tube and injected it into my arm. Then he quickly gave himself an injection. The heat was gradually subsiding, but my consciousness was becoming more and more confused. My eyelids closed because they were too heavy, but I felt a cool kiss on the gland at the back of my neck. Carter's breath was in my ear. "You are not allowed to run away this time." 04. When I woke up, there was no one around me and the whole room was filled with a strong scent of sea salt and mint. I felt dizzy, fragments flashed through my mind, and my head was splitting. The phone shows that it's already 10 o'clock. Fortunately, today is Saturday and I don't have to go to work. Work? Project Carter? When I thought of Carter, I suddenly came back to my senses. Damn. It turns out that the Carter they were talking about was actually Carter. Carter, the one who seems unhappy every time he sees me. But for some reason yesterday, Carter didn't act mean to me or throw me into the corridor. Instead, he carried me into the room. I suddenly remembered that a colleague once said that Carter didn't like omegas with freesia scent. So that omega is me. After all these years, he still hates me. I sighed, slowly stood up, and prepared to pack up and run away. "Run. If you don't run, you'll be killed." I simply washed my face, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw 2 small red spots on my neck. The weather is getting colder and there are mosquitoes. I didn't care about it anymore and rushed out. As soon as I got out of the door, I saw a man in a suit standing at the door. The man in the suit saw me and nodded politely. "Hello, Jackson. I'm Carter's secretary. You can just call me Holt." Hello. I greeted awkwardly. "Good morning, Holt, bye." I was about to run away, but Holt gently stepped forward to block my way. "Are you going home?" Carter had to go back to the company for something urgent, and he asked me to wait for you to wake up and take you home. I quickly refused. No, I'll take a taxi myself. Holt still squinted his eyes and smiled, which reminded me of a smiling tiger. I'd better take you there, or Carter will deduct my salary. Carter, the black-hearted boss. This shows how much hatred they have for me, and they're just afraid that if I run away, they won't be able to settle the score, right? Although I did cheat Carter when I ran away a few years ago. Before he went to the competition training camp, he asked me to wait for him to come back and tell me something. At that time, I agreed on the surface, but in my heart I thought, I won't wait for you, I must have nothing good to say. You bastard who only knows how to be mean to me, go and be with your Omega who has a 95% pheromone match rate. So I turned around and found his father, asked him to help me transfer schools and hide my whereabouts. Just for this little thing, Carter still holds a grudge against her. Why should workers make things difficult for workers? I had no choice but to agree to Holt's request and let him take me home. As soon as I got home, I received a call from my colleague. He's a colleague of mine who I get along well with. His name is Caleb. Jackson, were you okay yesterday? I heard you drank too much. Yeah, I'm fine. That's good. Caleb changed the subject to gossip. Did you see Carter yesterday? I heard he was stunningly handsome. I've only seen his photos, and he is indeed handsome. He seems even more handsome in person than in his photos. I uttered an and started to play dumb. No. That's a shame. Many Omegas in our company want to see the real person and say Carter is their perfect match. But they just thought about it as if Carter was going to get engaged soon. My heart sank. With whom? What's his name, Dylan? Oh, Dylan. The Omega whose pheromone match with Carter is as high as 95%. 05. When Aiden arrived at work on Monday, his workstation was empty. I asked my colleagues, and they said they didn't know who Aiden offended and why he was fired, so they asked him to come and take away all the things on the weekend. I was stunned. The general manager was in the office. I knocked on the door and went in, wanting to discuss with him whether I could withdraw from the project. The partner is Carter, and I definitely can't continue to participate. However, when the general manager saw me, he smiled a brilliant smile that I had never seen before. Jackson, you're here? I just happened to be looking for you. His smile made me feel uneasy, so I said, General Manager, I want to withdraw from this project. Is that okay with you? The general manager's smile disappeared immediately, and a huge bead of sweat fell from his forehead. What's wrong? Jackson, are you worried about something? In fact, he didn't want me to participate in this project at the beginning. I didn't have a good relationship with the general manager, and he liked to flatter him. But because my master wanted to learn with me, I joined this project team. But at this time he tried his best to keep me. Jackson, you can't leave. Our project depends on you. I will give you a bonus. Is that okay with you? Jackson, we can't live without you. I tried to refuse for a long time but failed. Instead, I took the job and carried large and small bags of gifts to Carter's company, under the pretext of building a good relationship with the partners. Carter's company is the person in charge of this project, and we all call him Lucas. I arrived downstairs of Carter's company, thinking that I would leave immediately and would not run into Carter. I snuck into the hall like a thief and sent a message to Lucas. Lucas, I'll leave your stuff at the front desk later. Remember to pick it up when you have time. Unexpectedly, Lucas called directly, Jackson, you came to our company? I said, why don't you come up and sit down? No, I have something else to do later. Oh. For some reason, Lucas' voice revealed a sense of difficulty, as if he was making up some nonsense. Then can you wait downstairs for a while? I have something to tell you about work. I couldn't refuse, so I had to sit in the lobby and wait for him. This building belongs to Carter Company. The lobby is magnificent and exudes the smell of money. Just as I was looking left and right like a bumpkin who had never seen the world, the automatic door of the hall opened and a boy walked in. He was wearing an exquisite white shirt and had smooth hair, and was as pretty as a girl. An acquaintance greeted him. Dylan, you're here? Dylan smiled back at him. My breathing became rapid and I hid behind the plants next to the sofa, trying to shield myself. The elevator door opened, and I thought it would be Lucas, but I saw Carter walking straight out. He seemed to be looking for someone, his eyes scanning the hall, but his progress was blocked by Dylan. Dylan smiled and said, "Want to go out?" Carter ignored him and looked around again, then paused when his eyes landed on me. I quickly withdrew my gaze, shrank back, lowered my head and silently recited a spell. "You can't see me, you can't see me, you can't see me." It turns out that the spell didn't work. Footsteps approached, and a pair of leather shoes appeared in front of me. "Jackson?" A mobile phone message popped up. "Lucas, I suddenly have something to do and I don't have time. Our Carter will go downstairs to look for you." At this point, I had no choice but to raise my head with difficulty. Dylan hurried over following Carter, and when he saw me, his face instantly turned grim. "Jackson?" He forced a smile. "Is that you? Why are you here?" I don't know Dylan well, but I responded to him out of politeness. "I'm here to deliver something. I'll be leaving soon." I didn't care about the gifts anymore and stood up to run, but Carter held my hand tightly. He held on tightly, looking at me intently, his gaze moving to my neck, and when he saw the 2 red marks that had faded a little, a hidden sense of satisfaction emerged in his eyes. He moved his other hand up and gently rubbed one of the red marks with his fingertips. I felt like I was struck by lightning and pushed him away with great force. You. I covered my neck in shock, trembling, and fled from this hell as if I was running for my life. It's game over. After not seeing him for many years, Carter has not only become more brutal, but also more perverted. It's perverted. 06. Ever since I discovered that Carter wasn't normal, I've been living in fear every day. Fortunately, I didn't see Carter again until Friday. When I got home on Friday night, I saw the door opposite was open and there were workers coming in and out, moving boxes. Half a year ago, the tenant opposite moved out, and the place remained vacant for half a year without being rented out. Until this week, it seemed to have finally been rented out, and workers were gradually moving things in. I was just looking out curiously when a familiar figure appeared at the door. "Yes, this carpet is in the bedroom. Be careful. It's worth $300,000. After giving instructions to the workers, Holt bowed slightly to greet me when he saw me. "Good evening, Holt." I opened my mouth wide. "Is it such a coincidence? You rented this room?" "It's not renting, it's buying." Holt smiled. "It's not me, it's Carter." This community is actually quite old and not very large. But the location is good, so the rent is not cheap. But in order to sleep a few more minutes in the morning, I still gritted my teeth and rented here. Carter's 3-story villa is located in the city center where every inch of land is valuable and the swimming pool is bigger than the entire room I live in now. He's actually moving here now. Crazy, all crazy, it's better to be a little crazy. I returned home in a daze and closed the door. After hearing a knock on the door, I opened it in a daze again. Carter's handsome face appeared before his eyes. I closed the door again with a bang. What does this mean? This is the time to settle the score. I was getting carried away. I really was. I even dared to slam the door in Carter's face. "Jackson, you have grown up and can now pack up and prepare for your funeral." At around 11 o'clock in the evening, there was another knock on the door. I trembled as I looked out through the peephole, but it was Holt I saw. After much hesitation, I finally opened the door. As soon as I opened the door, I smelled a light scent of sea salt mint. "Jackson, Carter has pheromone disorder again." Holt looked a little anxious. "He wants to take medicine again. Please stop him. The side effects of that medicine are serious." I was stunned. Is his illness still not healed? Carter's pheromone disorder causes patches of red rashes that sting like needles. There are 2 treatment methods. One is to take therapeutic drugs, but the side effects are great and long-term use may lead to drug resistance and aggravate the condition. The other is pheromones that have a matching rate of over 85%, which is effective, but it is very difficult to find people with such a high matching rate. The reason why I had an intersection with Carter in the first place was because my match rate with him happened to be 85. I thought I was his destiny, Until Dylan came along. Their match rate is 95%, and he is Carter's true destiny. Logically speaking, with such a highly compatible pheromone from Dylan over the years, he should be able to cure Carter. But after listening to Holt's words, why does it feel like Carter's condition is even worse? I can't. I pursed my lips and asked, "Did you call Dylan?" Holt was stunned. "Why call Dylan?" I didn't know what to say for a moment. Aren't they going to get engaged? Who said Dylan and I were going to get engaged? Carter came out of the room with the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone. His chest was covered in red and looked seriously bruised. His brows were furrowed, as if he was suppressing pain, but he looked at me seriously. "I have nothing to do with him." 07. While I waited for the private doctor to come, Carter stayed close to me, one arm loosely around my waist and the other holding my hand. Every time I tried to secretly pull my hand back, he would let out a painful hiss and looked very uncomfortable, forcing me to give up the idea of pulling my hand out. In fact, pheromone therapy does not require physical contact, but Carter closed his eyes and seemed to be in real pain, so he held my hand. He only comes close to me when he is unconscious. Holt went back first. Carter and I were the only ones in the room. When the private doctor arrived, I finally breathed a sigh of relief and went to open the door. But Carter refused to let go and looked at me with some pity. I had to half support him to open the door. The door opened and a very young doctor appeared. He said impatiently, "Brother, do you know what time it is? I told you that today's consultation fee must be 4 figures. Before he finished speaking, he saw Carter resting his head on my neck, his pupils trembling rapidly, with a look of seeing a ghost on his face. "Fuck? Who the hell are you?" Carter raised his thin eyelids. "Your father." The doctor's eyes widened like bells. He looked at me again, and suddenly he seemed to understand. "Jackson? Are you Jackson?" Damn, I finally saw a living person. Oh, let me see this little appearance. It's really handsome. No wonder our Carter can't forget him and can't sleep day and night. I couldn't stand it anymore, so I quickly interrupted his nonsense and said, "Doctor, can you take a look at him?" "Oh, okay. The doctor hurried to help, and after a long time, he finally got Carter off me. He helped me into the bedroom, said he wanted to do an examination, and asked me to wait in the living room. Then, intermittent shouting of the doctor could be heard from the bedroom. "The values are all normal, you look pretty good, you must have scratched out the red color yourself." I was saying, "You were never this weak even when the situation was more serious. You want me to fake it? Impossible, I have medical ethics." 50,000? Sure. Look at how serious it is. Do you think this treatment method is okay if you need a kiss to get better? I couldn't hear clearly, and just when I wanted to get closer, the door was opened. The beta doctor walked out with a beaming smile. "Jackson, I'm leaving Carter in your care. You must not let him take the medicine. The side effects are severe. His stomach is so bad that he was even hospitalized last time. Tell me, I don't know why this guy refuses to accept the omega with a 95% match rate. He doesn't want pheromones and insists on taking medicine." Every time he said something, my heart tightened. After the doctor left, I went to the bedroom. Carter lay with his eyes closed and unbuttoned a few more buttons, revealing the faint lines of his abdominal muscles, which were a little red. I convinced myself, "Jackson, don't be tempted by beauty. Have you forgotten how cold he was before? Now is the time." Carter seemed to sense something, opened his eyes, and was about to hold my hand. I took a step back, away from him. Carter's eyes dimmed, and his hand hung in the air for a long while before he took it back. Silence spread in the room for a moment. After a long time, I heard his apology. "Sorry." I stood there in a daze. He basically never apologized. Every time I got angry, I would comfort myself, it's okay. But now, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. So I said, "Carter, you move back. Let's not have any more contact." 08. In the second semester of my sophomore year, Carter's father found me and told me that Carter and I had an 85% pheromone match, and asked me to live in Carter's house so that I could help treat Carter's pheromone disorder at any time. The condition was that he would bear the medical expenses of his grandmother. My parents are divorced and my mother raised me alone. My grandmother's medical expenses were a huge burden. I didn't want to make my mother so hard, so I agreed. Before I went, Carter's father specifically told me that Carter had a bad temper and asked me to try not to provoke him. I was mentally prepared, but I found that Carter hated me even more than I thought. At that time, he had a very bad relationship with his father. He thought that I was sent by his father to monitor his every move, so he was extremely resistant to my appearance. So he also rejected my pheromones and would rather take medicine with side effects. The first time I saw him in an attack, he was extremely cold and fierce to me. "You are not allowed to release pheromones." After saying that, he picked up the medicine bottle, poured out a few capsules, and was about to put them in his mouth. I didn't know where I got the courage from at that time. I rushed forward, snatched the capsule, put the bottle in my pocket, and ran to the kitchen. "What are you doing?" Carter was so shocked by me that he froze for a few seconds. After he reacted, he strode towards me with an expression as if he was going to beat me up. I got anxious and crawled under the dining table. Carter's expression was blank for a moment. "Come out." "I won't. You'll definitely beat me up when I get out." I held the medicine bottle. "You can't take this medicine, it will affect your health." He took a deep breath and said, "Come out, I won't beat you." "I'm not a fool, I don't believe it." Smelling the scent of freesia, Carter gritted his teeth and said, "Take it back." I was under the dining table, shivering and releasing pheromones continuously. I didn't stop releasing until I saw the large rash on Carter's hands disappear. But Carter didn't leave. He just stood by the dining table and didn't say anything. If the enemy doesn't move, I dare not move either. After waiting for a long time, I felt uneasy and wanted to look up to see what was going on. However, after squatting for too long, my legs became numb, my body became unstable, and my head hit the table. It hurt so much that tears were about to come out, and I stuck my head out from under the table with a feeling of grievance. Carter's face was livid, but when he saw my tearful expression, he suddenly burst out laughing. He is very handsome. The 17-year-old boy is tall and handsome, with a cold face that rarely smiles. But when he smiles, it is so beautiful and captivating that I can't take my eyes off it and my heart beats very fast. I didn't know at that time that this was love. 09. After I crawled under the table for the 5th time, Carter finally gave in and agreed to stop taking the medicine. Although Carter was willing to accept my pheromones, he still hated me. I transferred to Carter's school, but Carter didn't allow me to talk to him at school and I had to pretend to be a stranger. At home, he doesn't pay much attention to me, and whenever he talks to me he says, "Idiot." When I bit my tongue while eating, he called me an idiot. When I couldn't finish my homework, he also called me an idiot. I tried to protest. "You can't keep calling me stupid. What if I really become stupid?" Carter just sneered contemptuously, "Idiot." Fortunately, I made friends quickly and received a love letter from a guy who was a rather handsome alpha. That was the first love letter I ever received in my life, and I wanted to show it off to the whole world. Even Carter noticed my happiness and asked me, "Why are you so happy?" "Look." I held the love letter high up. "This is the first love letter I've ever received." Carter paused for a moment, then immediately regained his indifferent expression. "Who is so tasteless?" I angrily took back the love letter, ignored him, and comforted myself not to be angry. But the love letter didn't last long. When it was placed on the table, it was soaked by the Coke that Carter accidentally spilled and turned into a brown paste. Carter, the culprit, said confidently, "This is God's will. It means that you and that person are not meant to be together. Go and reject them." I was so angry that I gritted my teeth, but there was nothing I could do. I thought, once Carter's pheromone disorder is cured, I will leave and never be bullied by this young master again. But I didn't expect that departure would come sooner than I thought. When I was in my 3rd year of high school, another Omega named Dylan transferred to the school. Unlike me, he is the young master of a wealthy family. He is elegant, handsome, and exquisite. As a result, many alphas chase him. Most importantly, his pheromone match rate with Carter is 95%. Much taller than me. Dylan transferred into Carter's class. Since then, there was one more person named Dylan in Carter's group. Among his admirers, there is now an Omega who always looks at him with a smile. And I, from beginning to end, was not in his world. I wasn't surprised when Carter's dad said he wanted to talk to me. Surprisingly, I thought he was going to let me go, but he didn't. Carter said not to let you go. He took a puff of his cigarette. He was very firm, and I didn't want to argue with him, so I respected his choice. But you know, I still prefer Dylan. He's the better choice in every way. He put out his cigarette and said, "Whenever you want to leave, feel free to find me." After the conversation, I came out of the study and saw Carter standing at the door. As soon as I came out, Carter walked up to me, pinched my face, and tapped me on the head twice. "Don't listen to him, idiot. Just stay here and don't try to run away. Do you hear me?" Maybe there is no follower who is easier to bully than me, so Carter let me stay. Even so, I am still very happy. The weather is getting colder and Christmas is coming soon. I was so happy because my birthday was on Christmas. When I was happy, I wanted to talk to Carter. "Carter, do you know what day the 25th of this month is?" Carter was looking at his phone, not even glancing at me. "Christmas." "Hey, there's more." He still had no expression. "School party." By the way, the school is holding a Christmas party. Carter and Zhuang he are on the same show and have been rehearsing together frequently recently. No. I gave him a mysterious hint. It's actually someone's birthday. Carter finally raised his head, looked at me for 2 seconds, and uttered 3 words in my expectant eyes. "Oh, Jesus. Yeah, you big head ghost." 11. Even though Carter didn't know my birthday, I still generously forgave him. It's okay, I can buy my own birthday cake and give him a piece. I ordered a strawberry cake. I had been eyeing it for a long time. Every day after school, I would look at it in the window for 2 minutes, drooling over the cake covered with strawberries. Then he was pulled away by Carter, who was passing by with a look of disgust. However, on Christmas Day, everything did not go so smoothly. Before Carter's performance, I sneaked backstage and saw Carter and Dylan standing face to face. Carter had his back to me and I could see Dylan's face and the love in his eyes. Suddenly, Dylan seemed to sense me and shifted his gaze to meet mine. But after just a few seconds, he immediately looked away as if nothing had happened. The next second, Dylan took a step closer to Carter. The distance between the two was only a few centimeters. He stretched out his hand and helped Carter adjust his tie in a familiar and natural way. I turned around suddenly and forced myself not to look any further. A sour feeling surged from my heart, and I felt so uncomfortable that I didn't know how I got back to my position. It wasn't until Carter's show started that I came to my senses. It was a large ensemble of instruments. Carter was the piano and Dylan was the violin. The gossiping voices around me kept ringing, "Oh my God, Carter is so handsome. Carter and Dylan are such a good match. I heard that their pheromone matching rate is 95%. They are destined to be a perfect match." I didn't want to listen anymore, so I stood up and left the auditorium. Winter was cold and my heart was even colder. It wasn't until I got the cake that I felt a little happier. But the happiness didn't last long. It was as if God was against me. I tripped over a stone on the road and fell hard. The strawberry cake I had been looking forward to for a month was smashed to pieces. I was completely stunned and didn't know what to do when looking at the cake. Maybe Carter is right and I really am an idiot. So I lost the cake and I couldn't have Carter either. I was sitting on the ground, dazed, when someone helped me up. "Oh my God, Jackson? Are you okay?" I looked up and saw the alpha who wrote me the love letter. "Fine." Aaron helped me sit on a chair and used the flashlight on his phone to check. After confirming that there were no injuries, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "I'll take you home." "No, thank you." I refused him and slowly stood up. Just as I was about to leave, a delivery guy rode an electric scooter towards me at a high speed. Fortunately, Aaron pulled me in time, otherwise I might have been hit. "You're not in a good mental state. I'd better take you there. Safety comes first." I thought what he said made sense, so I agreed. Adhering to the principle of safety first, we walked very slowly, and it was already very late when we returned to Carter's house. There was only a dim light on at home, and Carter was sitting on the sofa, looking very bad. When he saw me come back, he strode over to me. "Where have you been?" Carter asked in an unhappy tone. "Who was the person who sent you back?" He might have seen Aaron on the balcony. But I was tired and didn't want to talk to him, so I walked past him and went back to the bedroom. When we passed each other, Carter grabbed me and said, "Don't leave." Before he finished speaking, he froze for a moment and moved closer, sniffing me, his tone piercing. "You have alpha pheromones on you? What did you do? Speak." He applied a little more force to force me to answer him, until something dripped onto the back of his hand, burning hot. I didn't want to cry, it was embarrassing and not cool, but I just couldn't help it. Carter suddenly panicked. When he saw my tears falling, he was even more confused. "Jackson? Don't cry." He quickly tried to wipe my tears with his hands, but I pushed them away. I pushed him away and ran back to the room. I fell asleep while crying, and when I woke up the next day, I saw the message he sent me last night. "Happy birthday, I'm sorry." He was going to attend a training camp today. I listened in the bedroom for a long time but didn't hear any movement. I thought he had left, so I pushed open the door. Unexpectedly, Carter was still sitting on the sofa in the living room like a statue. The screen of his mobile phone kept showing that there was an incoming call, but he didn't answer it. When he saw me, Carter immediately stood up and hurried to me. His voice was more sincere than I had ever heard before. "I have to go to the training camp. Wait for me to come back. I have something to tell you." He looked very tired, as if he hadn't slept all night. I didn't say anything and he refused to leave. After a stalemate, I nodded. Carter then dragged his suitcase away. Before leaving, he seemed worried and repeated, "You must wait for me to come back." I didn't answer him again. I opened the refrigerator looking for something to eat and saw a cake in the refrigerator, exactly the same as the one I ordered yesterday. It was just written with chocolate sauce. "Happy birthday, idiot." I stared at the cake for a long time and then made a decision. I took out my phone, blocked Carter, and called Carter's dad to ask him to help me transfer to another school and keep my whereabouts secret. From then on, Carter and I never had any contact again. After that day, Carter didn't move out, but I hardly ever ran into him. But every day when I come home, I can find an exquisite cake box at my door. It is a well-known dessert brand. A palm-sized cake costs several $100. I opened the box and inside was a piece of millefeuille cake, topped with a fresh, plump strawberry, exuding a sweet aroma. I couldn't help swallowing and reluctantly sent the cake back to the opposite door. But the next day I found that the cake was still at Carter's doorstep, untouched. It just went bad after being left overnight. I felt it was a pity, so I called Holt and asked him and Carter to stop sending them. Holt replied to me with an okay, but the cake still appeared at my door the next day. "I've talked to Carter, but it's no use." Holt said calmly, "How about you talk to Carter in person, Jackson? I think he will definitely listen to you." I'm freaking out. I just told Carter no contact. I'll eat it. Anyway, I'm not the one who has to pay for it. After 2 weeks of taking it, I couldn't keep going. Although it's not my money, I still feel a little sad. I texted Carter, "Stop sending it." Carter quickly replied, "Is it not tasty? Do you want to change to another restaurant?" Me, "No. Not from any store." Carter, "You don't like strawberry cake anymore? Then try another flavor?" Communication failed and I gave up. When I got home in the evening, I was late because I went out to eat with my colleagues. When I got out of the elevator, I saw someone sitting at the door of my house. I was about to shout, "Help," when the voice-activated light came on, allowing me to see his face clearly. Carter smelled of alcohol. Maybe he was a little drunk. He looked at me and didn't say anything for a while. After a while, he raised the cake box in his hand and shook it. "Your favorite strawberry cake, freshly baked. Do you want to eat it?" "No." I said, "Carter, I don't like strawberry cake anymore." Carter looked at me with sadness in his eyes, and it took him a long time to say, "Oh." He then asked, "What about me? Don't you like me either?" I didn't respond. Carter frowned, gasped, and covered his stomach with his hands. I subconsciously became anxious. "What's wrong?" "My stomach hurts a little." Carter looked a little pale. My stomach wasn't feeling well to begin with. I had a social event tonight and drank a few extra glasses. I remembered what the doctor said, that Carter had been taking medication for the past few years and the side effects were very harmful to his stomach. Carter, you should stop taking the pills, I said to Carter. Dylan's pheromone treatment must be very effective. Why do you still need to take the pills? Carter was a little helpless. Jackson, did you misunderstand something? I don't like Dylan and don't want his pheromones. He looked at me deeply. I don't want anyone but you. Sometimes I feel like my door is a Doraemon treasure chest. I can pick up cakes of various flavors, and from time to time I can pick up a drunk who is 1.8 meters tall and as handsome as a celebrity. Whenever Carter gets drunk, he comes and sits at my door, pretending to be pitiful and secretly pulling my hand. When I notice, he takes it back as if nothing happened. I was furious. You just think I'm soft-hearted. You think I'm kind. Do you think I really don't dare to chase you away? Carter said, can you be a little softer and kinder and give me a chance to pursue you? I slammed the door and locked him out. That was a close call. I almost lost control again. Suddenly, it occurred to me that if Carter had been relying on medication all these years, his pheromone disorder would have continued to worsen and relapses would have been more frequent. But ever since Carter had an attack a few months ago and I released pheromones to help him treat it, he hasn't come to me again. I struggled for a long time and asked Holt for the phone number of Carter's personal doctor to inquire about Carter's condition. Oh, Jackson, what's wrong? The doctor was enthusiastic. The last time Carter had an attack? It seemed to be a week ago. This month? It should have happened 2 or 3 times this month, and I prescribed medicine for them all. I tightened my grip on the phone. Has he been taking medicine these past few years? Yeah, it was really hard. You know Dylan, right? He once ignored all attempts to release pheromones. Those were pheromones with a matching degree of 95. But in the end, he was thrown out by Carter. He didn't know how to be gentle with such a cute little omega. TSK, TSK, TSK. Perhaps because I didn't say anything for a while, the doctor comforted me. It's okay, he deserves it. Carter is a stubborn person sometimes. He deserves a beating. It's better to let him suffer a little, otherwise he won't change. Jackson, you can't forgive Carter so easily. You have to kill his prestige. You don't know how badly he suppressed me when I was in college. I was amused by him and felt better. When Carter sat by my door again, I went right ahead and fished out a small bottle of pills from his coat pocket. I looked serious, but Carter chuckled softly. I felt my dignity was challenged. What are you laughing at? It just reminded me of the first time you stole my medicine. Carter's smile grew wider and wider. You hid under the table and hit your head. Okay. I interrupted him hastily. Stop talking. Carter agreed quickly. Okay, I'll listen to you and I won't talk about it anymore. He wasn't as mean as before, and I felt a little uncomfortable. You talk so normally now, I'm not used to it. I don't know what he was thinking about, but Carter lowered his eyes, then quickly opened them again and looked at me seriously. It was my fault before, I was wrong. Can you forgive me? I asked you to wait for me to come back, and you agreed, but when I came back, you disappeared. I looked for you like crazy, but my dad told me not to bother you because you didn't want to see me. I didn't know what to do. For the first time, I felt empty inside, as if half of my heart had been hollowed out. That's when I knew I loved you, Jackson. I still like you now. 15. Christmas is coming again. My colleagues wanted to treat me to a meal and celebrate my birthday, so I declined Carter's invitation. He looked disappointed but said, okay, have fun. Carter still persists in leaving things at my doorstep and pretending to run into us every day. He said he didn't want to use pheromones to kidnap me, but I tipped off Holt and successfully caught him taking medicine twice, and used pheromones to help him relieve the symptoms. Although I haven't agreed to Carter yet, I know that I don't want to see him feel bad. I want him to be healthy. While out eating, I ran into Dylan. To my surprise, he actually said to me, "Happy birthday." I was a little surprised. How did you know today is my birthday? Dylan smiled bitterly. On Christmas Day of my senior year, after the performance, everyone said they wanted to go out for a midnight snack to celebrate, but Carter refused, saying that there was an idiot's birthday and he had to go back. I was very curious, so I followed him all the way. I saw him go to the cake shop to pick up a cake. and there was a gentleness on his face that I had never seen before. Later I checked and sure enough, that day was your birthday. Dylan sighed. I've liked him for so long and thought I could impress him, but it didn't work. Happy birthday, I wish you happiness. I looked at his back as he left, feeling mixed emotions. The restaurant was very lively, with classic Christmas music playing in the background and people laughing and talking. But at this moment, what came to my mind was Carter sitting alone at my door. After finishing my meal and blowing out the candles, I hurried home. There was a familiar figure at the door. He was a little surprised that I came back earlier than he expected. Next to him was a big cake box, and through the transparent plastic film, I saw the strawberry cake. It's almost the same as my senior year of high school. I didn't give you a good time before, so I want to make it up to you this year. I sniffed, feeling my eyes sore, and snorted, it's too late. Carter's breathing stopped for a few seconds. I continued, but I am merciful and will reluctantly forgive you. Carter was like resurrection, his hands trembling slightly. Really? Although it was a question, he didn't give me a chance to answer. He hugged me tightly and said, Baby, you can't go back on your words now. I saw words written in chocolate on the cake. This time it was, Happy birthday, baby. I remembered what I said before and hit him hard. You are the idiot. Your whole family is idiots. Well, I'm stupid. Carter kissed my glands. Do you still want to hear what I wanted to say when I asked you to wait for me to come back? Since you have asked sincerely, I will listen to you with all my heart. Carter smiled and kissed my cheek again. Actually, there's nothing new. I've told you everything. I'm just sorry. I was wrong. I like you. Can you stay with me forever? The problem from a few years ago has come back to me after several Christmases. I had no choice but to agree to him, because I am such a kind person. So I said, okay. 16. In the third month of being with Carter, his fever period arrived. A few days ago, he suddenly began to emit sea salt mint pheromones intermittently all over his body, and looked at me innocently. I think I'm about to have a fever. So I nervously consulted his personal doctor, hoping to get some professional advice. The doctor was very exaggerated. Oh my God. Jackson, you must be prepared. This will take 7 days and 7 nights to be over. I was shocked by him. Really? It's absolutely true. Carter is a top alpha. How can your frail body bear it? Listen to me, you must eat more these few days. Make up for your physical strength. Otherwise, when Carter's fever starts, you won't have time to eat. He also mysteriously stuffed a tube of unknown object into my hand, but I threw it away like a hot potato. I was trembling with fear at the doctor's words, so I ate a lot every day during the past few days, waiting for Carter's fever to come with a fearless attitude. The day Carter's fever officially set in, I was wolfing down my second strawberry cake. When Carter came out of the bedroom, the cream on the corner of my mouth was still there. He looked at me with red eyes and swallowed up and down his throat. I sensed a hint of danger and asked cautiously, are you hungry? Do you want some strawberry cake? Carter walked up to me, kissed the corner of my mouth, dipped his finger in some cream, and ran it across my collarbone. He said in a hoarse voice, Eat.